We're going to have a panel discussion here. For those of you that have been to Stir Treks before, you may say, they've never done a panel before, and you'd be right. This is the first time we've ever done a panel discussion, so there's a little learning. We figured out the camera. We're going to figure out the microphones. And I hope we'll have a really good discussion here about AI. So before we get started, I just wanted to know, how many of you are using some form of AI every single day at work? Okay, wrong question. How many of you aren't? 1, 2. Yeah, that happened fast. How many people just use it casually? A couple times a week, maybe? It's interesting. This is a major transformation in our industry, and so it's really interesting to see how people adapt, how they adopt, where it's all going to go. And I'm hoping that we can have a really good conversation about that here. So I have 3 awesome panelists that come from very different perspectives on the world. And so I'd like to let them each introduce themselves. We have Cory, Jamie, and Kate, but I'll let them give a quick intro of themselves right now.
Hi there, Cory House, independent consultant, been writing code since late 90s or so. And these days I'm helping teams adopt AI, doing a lot of live coding and workshops, those sorts of things.
I'm Jamie Hughes. I am a faculty member at WVU Parkersburg. It's a community college in West Virginia. I teach computer science, software engineering, and just try to make the curriculum that we use as modern as possible so it fits in with everyday jobs.
Hello, I'm Kate Holterhoff. I'm a senior analyst with Red Monk. We're industry analysts. We take a developer perspective, so we're interested in, what practitioners are actually doing, their adoption trends, product-led growth, things like that. And personally, I was a front-end engineer before becoming an analyst, and before that, I was an academic for a decade. So did my PhD work at Carnegie Mellon, and I don't know, it was a good time. All right.
Thank you to our panelists, and I'm really glad that we can have this conversation. So I like to start with some kind of rapid fire questions, and I'll just kind of hand the mic down, and if you ever want to pass on a question, that's okay. But the first one is, as we think about what AI is doing to all of us in our careers, in our industry, and outside of our industries, do you feel like it's lowering the barrier to people becoming developers or more technical in general? Or do you feel like it's just kind of moving where that barrier might be? I'd love to hear your perspective on this.
I think it's absolutely lowering the barrier. To give you an example, my son is 18 and one of his best friends just launched a SaaS application as a senior in high school. He does not have any software development experience, and I'm spending my time now reviewing his app, which, by the way, failed on login once I tried the first time. So there's going to be some bumpy roads. But I think it's wonderful that it's lowering the bar. I think humanity progresses by us being able to increase the number of people that can accomplish complex tasks. So I think that's a wonderful aspect to it.
I agree that it is lowering the barrier, especially in terms of syntax. However, it's also increasing the amount of maintenance, like long-term maintenance, and depending on the background of the person that's using it to generate code, it can also, how do I want to word this? It increases maintenance, but it also can introduce potential issues in terms of complete understanding of the system, especially if they're only generating like portions at a time. So, Kate?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the quick answer is yes. But I mean, I think a way that I've been thinking about it is in terms of teams. So when I was a front-end engineer, I was on an interactive team. I worked with UX engineers. I worked with designers, and they had us kind of in the back of the office space, in the dark, and we would roll our chairs from place to place. And if there weren't enough engineers to work on a particular project, the designers would use Webflow to spin up a quick landing page. And, same thing for, front-end engineers and back-end engineers. I would, have to wait for my turn to get help if the database was doing something unexpected, things like that. But now, with AI, we're all smooshing our roles together. We're able to do a little bit of everything. And I think that that's really exciting, but also, poses a lot of challenges. I mean, security not being the least among them. And so I think the way that we're able to move between roles is new, and I think something that we're all still trying to figure out. And I've read some smart people who are trying to figure out the relationship between like prototyping and actually creating like a demo, or like creating something that we're actually going to share more broadly, or creating software that's sort of for an internal tool. We've moved beyond just leveraging chatbots and using an API as a way to access these LLMs and give them, use RAG in order for them to, have access to whatever information that we want to, use natural language to access. But I think what's exciting about now is that we get to try out things that were previously just, too complicated.
Awesome, thank you. So one of the things that I think we talk about a lot in AI sessions and when we talk about vibe coding or whatever we want, AI-assisted coding that we're doing today, I think a lot of people spend a lot of time, and if you look at the hype that's on LinkedIn and Twitter and everything else, it's, oh my God, I can't believe how easy this is. I can't believe how this has changed how I write software. And one of the things for me personally that I found is that it has dropped the barriers significantly. I would have taken a month to build all of the stuff that I've built, and instead I did it on a Saturday. That's remarkable to me, right? Like that has changed dramatically how I think about building software. And there is always that really positive spin that I see a lot of people talking about, hey, I can do so much more, I can move so much faster. So my next question for all of you is, what's something AI still can't do very well? What is something that stands out to you, especially in the software development world, that stands out as a thing that is like, it really doesn't do that very well yet?
The thing that immediately comes to mind to me is its ability to actually assure that what it did was quality. And that is our job as developers, is to make sure that the AI actually does a good job. Because if you have no feedback loop, no guardrails around it, then it will tell you it is done before it's actually done. And this is why there's such a split right now when you talk to people and they'll say things like, oh, it's a slop cannon. Well, it's a slop cannon in the hands of somebody who hasn't put up sufficient guardrails so that it can check its own work. It is lazy by definition. It's lazy strategically because they don't want to be spending any more time than they have to giving you a solution. So it's going to favor saying it's done before it might be. But if you set a bar and you force it to clear it before it's done, that's how you get to quality. And I'll say, I mean, as a side note, the project that I just finished, I thought AI was going to lower software quality, but I think it is elevating it, because it is forcing us to think more in terms of automating our checks than we ever have before and setting a bar programmatically that enforces it. And we also no longer have this problem of our code looking like it's written by a bunch of different people. It feels very cohesive. So a lot of wins there.
Do you have anything? I can't think of anything on top of that.
Well, I mean, I think the term du jour is taste, right? The machines don't have it. I think that is pretty much what Cory's articulating there. But yeah, I think so code is cheap, but deploying it is still challenging. And a lot of the research I've been doing at RedMonk has had to do with open source maintainers and slop. And, I think there's a real bottleneck between how easy it is now to create all this code, but then if it needs to be reviewed, that is where there's just no speeding that up currently. And I think there's some tools in place where you can try to find the obvious slop, but in addition to writing lots of code easily, it also writes a lot of, very lengthy explanations. And so trying to just peel that back and actually figure out if something's valuable is a problem. And, then you also have the problem of incentivization. Like, if we still have, so the Curl project just got rid of their bug bounty program because of this. If we're incentivizing folks to send us slop, you're going to keep getting it. And so I think that's something where it's not necessarily the AI's fault, it's kind of the human's fault, but AI has made it, has created problems that really, didn't exist before.
This is awkward to always have to stand up. I feel like I'm cutting her off. I just want to make sure that I'm ready when she's ready. So this is another kind of broad question, and I think all of us have a different perspective on this. But for you, each of you individually, how has AI changed how you work? I'm going to start with you, if that's all right.
All right, so as an educator, it has made things a little bit more challenging in terms of ensuring academic integrity in a classroom. So before, whenever you had to go to like English class and you had to write a paper and you copied off your best friend down the street, it was a little bit easier to figure out, oh yeah, this is a blatant copy. With AI and its ability to generate code, and it's essentially just following patterns that it finds that can provide appropriate answers and expected answers, it makes it a little bit harder to denote whether or not what was actually written was done by a human versus what was done by a machine. And then you also get into the situation where if I have, let's say, my 3 students that are sitting in front of me, each one of them submits an assignment, they all use AI, they may have similar things, whether it is similar variable names or comment structures that were generated, you still can't pinpoint exactly if it's theirs or not without having to go through the added hassle of doing verbal explanations and say, hey, Ethan, can you explain how this works? Or, hey, Katie, how did you go about researching this portion? And it just adds more time and complexity. Up for grabs.
The answer is everything. Everything I do is with AI now. One of my huge pet peeves for writing is writing conclusions. I said what I said. I don't want to say it again, like moving on with my life. And AI is so good at summarizing what's already been said. So I run my company's podcast, and you just put the transcript in there, writes me the abstract, will tell me what good chapter titles might be, give me some examples of titles. I mean, that's just easy. Same thing with if you're recording a briefing phone call, writes great notes. The minutes, I've always been bad at taking notes. Like I look at my notes, I'm like, I don't know what these words are. This is, it's misspelled. I'm very bad. So it's very good at that. But again, this gets back to the idea of like taste and judgment. I don't want it doing that part at all. And frankly, it's too long. I don't actually want to read all these minutes. Like, you talk about slop. I mean, I've got these lengthy descriptions of things, and they're very bad a lot of times. So I think a lot, when we think about skills and all the things that we're, trying to help our AI to work for us, a big part of that is like, say less. Get to the verb. Tell me what's the most important part of this. Give me 5 bullet points. So yeah, directing that, absolutely important. But I try to use it as, I'm not at the assistant phase because I refuse to connect AI to my email or anything where it could do something just awful. So I use it mostly as like a writing assistant, help me to brainstorm, help me to think about this in a different way. And also, just always summarizing. I mean, that is where it's at. I mean, also, I've built several apps. I have if anyone wants to see my cool vibe-coded website, it's visualhacker.org, and Ruby on Rails you could not vibe code a Ruby on Rails app until we're talking like 6 months ago. And the versions, it just didn't work. So yeah, all of my sort of digital humanities projects that I maintain, I just couldn't exist without AI. So yeah, everything. I think through it now. I'm like, how can I use AI so that I can make this, a quicker process or, reduce friction, right?
AI boiled the ocean. It's changed everything. And more so, I've been writing code now for over 25 years, and this last year was like existential crisis for me, big time. Figuring out how to embrace this in a way that still feels like software development at all. I no longer write long prompts. Most of the time I'm pointing it at tickets. I'm watching it implement those tickets. I'm watching the direction that it goes. Code reviews, I don't read every line anymore because it's impractical. I'm focusing more on architecture and less on syntax. I'm asking myself every single time, is there a way that I can systematize this feedback that I have for the AI? Because I shouldn't be saying the same thing twice. I'm looking at tickets and I'm having AI vet those tickets and saying, compare this ticket to the mock-up and tell me what discrepancies you see, because often they don't completely relate to one another. There can be inconsistencies, and which one should win. The opportunity that I see is using AI at every point in the SDLC, and there's a lot of companies right now that are using it just for software development. So the contract I just finished, that's what we were doing, was actually starting to talk with product owners, having them use AI to vet their tickets, to find the gaps before they're given to developers, having QA come in, and instead of QA going in and doing manual tests, writing automated tests, and recognizing that now the bar is lower. Like if you're QA and you weren't really a developer, now you can take the tests that we have and interact with AI and improve our tests, find edge cases, be very exploratory. So the opportunity that I see is, this impacts everybody. So many opportunities.
Thank you, everybody. That's a good question. I think it has very optimistic outlooks on it, but especially in education, I understand how that causes headaches more than anything, because the tool is there to make the task of writing a paper or something like that easy, but that's not the point. I need you to know how to do these things so that later, maybe you're only asking AI to do it, but you can help steer it in the direction that makes sense. But if you've never done it before, it's much harder to do that. And we probably see that with software development as well, right? If you know someone that's like, hey, I know you're a software developer, but now I am too. I've been doing all this cool stuff I've built. Here's my URL at localhost. And all of a sudden you realize they don't know at all what they're doing, and they're just kind of fumbling their way through. So this is gonna be an inflammatory question. I'll be interested to see how you all react to this. Let's see. If someone builds an app entirely with AI, now we're talking about having built it, deployed it, probably has a database behind it, probably some security, whether they hand-rolled it or used some third party, but they have something that has users. They've put it out there in the world and they have people using their software. Are they a developer?
Yes, obviously. Yeah, this is not a question. Yeah, I 100% say they are. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Definition of terms are changing. And again, I said existential crisis for me too, because if we're directionally headed toward a world where behavior is all that matters and the code is sort of an implementation detail and you're monitoring that, if you've defined yourself by the craftsmanship of your code, the code cleanliness and all these things, that matters less than it used to. It's not to say that it doesn't matter, but I think, you say this term and it is inflammatory, because I think most of us in here define our egos, at least partially, by feeling like I'm really good at syntax. I understand what all these keywords mean and I memorize them and I know where to put my curly braces. But that's just not that important now, because a machine does it better. So you've got to find a different way to be useful. And the terms that we use for that, yeah, I'm going to call that person a developer, because increasingly that person is me.
So just using AI to create and deploy a system, I would term them as a creator. If they can maintain it long term, they're a developer. But then if they can add to it logically and without too many crutches, not necessarily like using AI for this, but if they're able to create the prompt, say, hey, I need to add this new feature, it needs to be in this area and with this other interaction, then that's more of an engineer.
Got it. Lovely.
I really liked your answer. Yeah.
Those are all excellent answers, and I'm sure a lot of people, as Cory said, we all self-identify as developers. I've put a lot of my career.
Have you ever had this problem where you deploy your website?
I have not. I have not. I have not had that problem. No problem. So, but that actually leads me into my next question, which I think is really good. So, what skills matter more now that we have AI in our hands? And I'll start at the end again with Kate.
Okay. Skills. I mean, yeah. Well, Markdown is newly important, right? Everyone should have a good grasp of Markdown. I don't know. So I always joke that front-end engineers are the best vibe coders because I know enough to be dangerous. And so I think having like a good understanding of what's available can be helpful. And let me give you an example. So I've vibe coded this like little vocabulary app for my 6-year-old. And I started out with like vocab words for, second graders, great. But then I was like, well, geez, he got through those real quick. Why don't I put, all the vocab words from like K through 12 on there? Awesome. Well, suddenly I've got this huge JavaScript file. And I was like, you know what? That's too big. Let's make it a JSON file. Well, that's the kind of thing that maybe someone who's never done any development might not know to ask. So I feel like having that bit of understanding could be valuable. And maybe that gets to your, creator idea that like, I know enough to be dangerous, but I'm also lazy enough to not spend too much time sweating it. But I also realize that a gigantic JavaScript file that is holding a lot of data is stupid. Like that's not going to work. So yeah, I don't know. So I don't like the word taste. I don't know that there's a better one, but yeah, having judgment is newly important. Maybe thinking in an architectural way of like, how do I want this built ahead of time? Having some, I don't know, the idea that spec-driven development has become like newly important now because, if AI is really about determinism, and if we're trying to say, how much do we want our systems to be creative and imaginative and, come up with a solution, and how much of it is like, do it this way, this is a spectrum here. And so I think it comes down to like trying to, determine where on that spectrum you want things to be deterministic and like do it this particular way. Because yeah, like the models are trained on older information and older information isn't always the best. Like trying to get, LLMs to use Bun or one of the newer compilers or something is very challenging. Like they're always going to default to tried and true technologies, and so you always have to be like, no, I told you to use TurboPack or whatever, and just it's very challenging. So I feel like having a sense of what's available to you and like sticking to that and being like, no, we're going to build it this particular way, and even arguing with your systems, that's something that we all need to become better at. So,
mine would just be try to stay curious and ask why, like a really annoying toddler. Ask why is this an answer? Why is it doing this? Why is this the best option? Why can we not do this instead? Just constantly ask and try to figure out why was this given, or if it's by an AI prompt, or why are we doing it this way, especially if you're trying to elicit requirements from users.
I like that you use the word judgment, and I agree. I would be specific about that because the nature of software development, in my experience, is every ticket is insufficient. No ticket actually describes everything we need, and this has applied my entire career. People think that they have specified what they want. They think the mock-up is sufficient, and it's not. And they won't consider the accessibility, the security, the performance, the edge cases in UX. That's something we've always added value on, and that's going to continue to be the case. But now it is our job to hold the AI accountable when it doesn't do those things. And it's our job to see the decisions that are hiding there and not merely let a default occur, but to use our judgment to force that decision. And this is, again, why one of my favorite skills that I use is grill me. And it's really nice because you are telling the AI, look for decisions that are hidden. I don't want you to be presumptuous. Some models are very eager to jump in. Anthropic's models are very much that way. They're eager to give you code, so they will just assume a lot of things, and that's a real risk. So that's where we're adding value, is making decisions that are hidden because the tickets aren't complete.
That is excellent. All very good answers. And I think as we think about the skills that we all use every day, I think that we're going to find more and more that it's not about whether or not you know that CSS syntax or the right way to write a for loop, but it's going to be very much about how can I think methodically through the problem? How can I make sure the ticket's complete? How can I make sure that I understand what this thing is supposed to do before I get there? So there is a segment of our community, of our profession, that hasn't had a lot of that opportunity yet. I'm going to lump them together and call them junior developers. These are folks that have entered the industry in the last couple of years, and they face a pretty hard road. Because I will tell you that I'm guessing all of us have done this as well, but when we get up on stage and we talk about AI, we talk about how it's so great that I have this junior developer sitting next to me that knows every syntax and knows it's so great that I just have this junior developer that will help me do this thing. And what it makes me realize pretty quickly is that actual junior developers probably are having a hard go at it. One, they don't have the 25 years of experience that some of us have writing code and going through the trenches and solving all the problems. But two, they're also no longer going to be given the opportunity to go through those trenches. And so I think, at least for me, I don't know if this applies to everyone in the room, but it feels to me like there is going to be a shortage. We are holding on to our best senior developers, our best principals, but we're not hiring more juniors. Why would we do that? We can just spin up an agent and they can do a lot of that work for us. And so I want to make sure I get my question right here. How do you evaluate that a junior developer is doing well today? How do you compare them? I mean, they are empowered to use AI just as much as anyone else. How do we evaluate that they are good at what they do compared to someone that is senior? And we may have already hinted at some of these answers, but I'm curious to know what you guys think.
So evaluating the quality of any developer is one of those here be dragons type of conversations. There are people that will fixate on metrics, and metrics are useful, but all metrics are broken. And so you can use that to say, I mean, I actually don't think that it's much different than any other time that I've been evaluating people on my team. I look at the quality of what they're outputting. I look at how their peers evaluate them. I look at the velocity. And in particular, I'm looking, are you headed in the direction of growth? Are you eager to learn? Are you willing to say, I don't know? Are you asking for help rather than wasting all day spinning on something? And in the age of AI, my bar would be, are you using the tools, or are you out here Googling and typing by hand? Because no, go ahead, leverage this thing, and don't assume that you need to understand everything. Ask along the way and have the AI teach you. I mean, this is one of the weirdest things for me, because I've been authoring courses for years, and now I don't want to do it anymore because I just think it's kind of dumb. The time now, how do I want to learn? I want to ask the AI at that moment. I want you to just give me real-time learning. Just-in-time learning, I think, is a very powerful thing, and that is something that I would evaluate a junior is, are you better today than you were 6 months ago? And that should be pretty evident.
I think having junior developers on a team is incredibly valuable, mainly because it is a new way of thinking. They bring in new ideas, new experiences. Maybe they know more up-to-date information that maybe the senior team doesn't have. So from a more human perspective, it's better to bring in new ideas than solely relying on a machine that is already created to give you the best answer. And other humans are easier to challenge those ideas and bring up points that could be missed or lost along the way in other conversations.
Yeah, I mean, it's an unsolved problem right now, and it's I hate it. Institutional memory is going to get lost. People pulling up the ladder behind them. It's very bad. So I mean, all the kind of obvious answers of learning the tools and being curious and making sure that you're open to these new ways of doing things, obviously apply in this case. But a lot of it has to do with the economic situation. Like, I'm not convinced that folks are getting laid off because of AI. I think we're still in this, post-zero interest rate phenomena situation. And that's really why we have these layoffs and these, hiring freezes and things like that. So, I don't know that I have a good answer for this, but it's obvious that, we obviously want to have junior developers for sustainability reasons, also for teamwork reasons, right? That we have these, we got T skills that we want to make sure that we are, working across the organization, that we're communicating. I mean, all of these continue to be important. So, yeah, I'm afraid I don't have anything, warm and fuzzy to say on that front. Yeah.
I think that's okay. I just realized how big my butt is on the screen. Awesome. Okay. Cool. So let's get into the next question then. So don't look up, Jeff. That's the tip. All right. So Jamie, you hinted a little bit at diversity. That was something else that I was curious about, and I won't spend time to have you guys answer that specifically. But as I think about AI and where it's headed, right? The people that have access to AI, much like the people that had access to the internet when it was first kind of a new thing, they had this accelerator that kind of moved them beyond where most people could currently be. And I feel like AI is doing that in some regard with junior developers and diversity across teams in general. But one of the questions that I'm really curious to hear you guys talk about is the idea of relevance. We have a whole room of people here that chose to come hear what we think about AI and the future and where things are headed. So I'd like to know from all of you, more than tips like be curious, which I think are incredibly valuable, if all of them could walk out of here and have one thing that they were like, I got to start doing that, what would be the thing that you would recommend they start doing?
I mean, just start building stuff. Like, this is such a great opportunity for us all to have our own software. Like, you mentioned the stupid app I made for my son, but I think a lot of us are able to realize projects that we weren't able to make before. So, I have a bias towards action, for good or ill, and so I feel like in our current moment, take advantage of those cheap tokens right now. They're only going to get more expensive, and build some stuff. And I think that that's going to offer a lot of educational opportunities. So as much as it's easy to just hit, accept on our agentic IDEs, I think if we can slow down and say, why does this work the way that it does? Or can you explain this to me? There's some great folks, thought leaders in the AI space, like Kat Hicks, who have actually created some skills that allow you to do that. So I think for folks who still want to be in the software industry and who want to learn and leverage these tools, be building and, think about ways that you can use this to, better understand these things. I don't know. I think I'm still very optimistic about this. Like, I'm super excited that I get to, spend my time actually creating things that in the past I wasn't able to. And I'm able to add features now to some of my projects that I had been, I despaired of ever including. I mean, it's great. So, so keep building.
Kind of mirroring off of what you just said, build, take chances, and try to figure out if something is even possible. But another thing that I tend to tell all of my own students is try to keep a list of all of the things that you don't know. That way, if something does come up or you see something on YouTube or across like Instagram or whatever, and it was something that you didn't know anything about prior, then you can start going down the rabbit hole and trying to figure out, okay, what exactly this is. And it also helps later on for like interviews if they're looking at job postings and there's things on there that maybe they're not recognizing, they can add it to their running list and kind of take the initiative to build a program or look at different structures or different ways to maybe refactor their own current projects to fit those things that they don't fully understand yet. And by doing that, they gain more skills and can help themselves in the future.
I love that answer. I actually have a Trello board with a card called Things to Learn, and then I drag cards up and down to organize. I'm like, okay, here's the next thing, and I will move things over to done, not when I've actually learned it all, but when I feel like I've learned enough. Like, I don't know everything about TypeScript, but I know enough that I can move it to the done column and go focus on something else. Related to that, I talk to AI in my car. So I learn while I'm driving, and I find having a dialogue is really helpful. So like that is an opportunity to talk to a subject matter expert, or at least in theory. So that's something I find useful. What I would encourage, though, is I found it helpful to draw a line and say, I'm not writing code anymore. So I don't even, if I know there's a one-line change, I don't even make the one-line change anymore. I ask AI to do it because I think that helps me actually get there. I didn't mean for it to be funny, but So I would encourage you to try that for a while. If you're somebody that's not all in on agentic, that will let you see how far you can go. And when you get there, I'll also say there's a lot of people in here that are not doing that because they don't have enough tokens. This is a controversial statement, but I believe that if your boss or your company is too cheap to do it, pay out of your own pocket, and what you're going to find is you're going to be the most productive person on your team, and then you're going to have an interesting conversation about why.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I have regularly spent my $100 for all the credits I can possibly use every single month. And if you had asked me 5 years ago, hey, are there any tools you use that you pay $100 a month to just do your job a little bit better? I would have said, no, that's crazy. Why would I ever do that? And I've had recent conversations with people about that $100 Claude Code subscription, and the number of people that say, I can't believe it's only $100. I would pay $500. I would pay $750 to have this kind of capability, this kind of technology in my back pocket. And so I have one question leading into another, but I'm going to ask them separately so you don't know what the second one is. The first question is, in 5 years, this is a predictive question, so analysts should be good at this. How much code do you think will be written by hand 5 years from now?
I'll go ahead and jump in. It's going to trend towards zero. I don't know if 5 years is the number, but I think that's obviously the direction. I say that because imagine you've got two companies in a scenario. One is generating half of their code by hand, and the other one is generating none of their code by hand. Imagine how much faster one is going to move than the other. And imagine how much more responsive one of them will be to their customers than the other. Imagine how much lower their costs will be. It's going to force us. We don't have a choice. And this is also where if there are people in here that don't like AI, I get it, but we don't have a choice. This is what you need to embrace to be competitive.
I agree. Yeah, I think it's going to get less and less. I know. I always think of these edge cases. Like, there's some people who love it, and don't take that away from them. And there's also the people who are creating this. I said I was at Carnegie Mellon, and the folks building these DARPA robots on campus there. I suspect a lot of them are writing assembly and stuff. They're, so these lower language, lower level languages. I feel like it's always going to be there. But yeah, in terms of creating business logic, right? Why would anyone do that? I don't know. I just feel like I know. Yeah. Well, okay. I'll just leave it with the humor. But yes, I think less and less. Did you want to take it at all?
Yeah. I want to be the stubborn one and say yes. We're still going to be writing code because it comes back to that maintenance position. If you don't understand how the code works from a fundamental level, you can't maintain it long term.
Fair. All right, the dreaded follow-up question. So 5 years into the future we are now, and we're generating all of our code with AI primarily. And the companies that make it, Anthropic and Google and OpenAI, have boosted their prices to such astronomical levels that it's only about $100 less than hiring a junior developer. Every month, it costs you about $10,000. So my question to you is, are we going to find ourselves in a world where the professionals that write code no longer have the ability to do their jobs without AI?
Yeah, there's going to be a subset. That's the nature of humanity. Humans are lazy, just like AI is lazy. We are naturally evolved to try to save energy. So we're going to do that. Now, if that happens, though, I can absolutely imagine a future where it is only marginally cheaper to use AI, but that still means you use AI. That's the nature of capitalism. Like, if it's 5% cheaper, you still have to do it. Otherwise, your competitors over here, their cost structures are going to be 5% less than yours, and they will price you out of business. Now, there's some ways to market your way out of this and brand your way out of this, but in the end, I agree. Like right now, we're enjoying a free lunch that's going to end. The prices will almost certainly go up, but there's also efficiencies that are going to push against that. I think in the end, if we need to dig into the code, there's going to be a subset of people that will be capable of doing so, and they will be very, very valuable. At least I'm hoping so, because I want to be one of them. Right. Yeah.
Okay, do you want to go? No, you can take it. I need a second to think on how I wanted to start this. Sorry. All right. So 5 years into the future, everything's written by AI, and we're to the point where we can't get rid of it. And it's comparable in price to hiring a developer. Could you make the same argument in the past about with databases and how they were introduced and how we had people that were manually keeping track of accounting, like ledger books, and then databases came along, and yeah, they're pricey, but at this point they're pretty cheap to stand up. I mean, you can get free versions of them, but we still have the accountants that like to do that double check and maintain all of the systems. So yeah, we're going to be stuck with that tool. Yeah, we're going to be continually using that tool, but it's not going to replace the human aspect of it entirely.
I mean, look, we've already seen this. Any COBOL developers in the audience? COBOL? There's one. See? Nobody wants to write COBOL. No millennials. No Gen Z. But there are a lot of banks out there still running on COBOL, and we need those COBOL developers. We still do. So I feel like there's a precedent for your question, and so obviously we're going to need folks who can still write code, and they're going to make a lot of money. So good for them.
So I guess that is keep your skills fresh, everybody. The payday is coming. Okay, so I know we only have a couple minutes left. I'd kind of like each of our panelists to take just a minute or so and kind of share their perspective on what they're most excited about as we look at AI continuing to advance. I think that there are a lot of things we're already seeing today that are super powerful and beneficial, but I think everybody has a vision for, man, I wish it could do that now. So I'm very curious to think about, from each of you, as we kind of wrap up here, what is the thing that you can see that happening, it's just maybe not here yet?
I'll take it. There you go. I love to hear myself talk. All right. AI assistants. Folks are already trusting, their Claude bots, to check out their email and even write their emails for them, and to have all their super secret private information, linked up to their business accounts, whatever. I am scared to death. I will not do that, but I would love to, because I hate writing emails. And so right now I'll just kind of draft an email, but I would love for it for me to wake up in the morning and my assistant to be like, oh, you got all these really boring emails and I drafted all these responses and I can accept them. So this exists, but I will not do this because I don't trust it. I think it will send those emails without my, say so. So I think it really, for me, I just want to be able to trust the systems, and I don't yet. I won't link any of them up. I use it as a very separate sandboxed thing. Can't do it. And also, I mean, we talked about paying your own money as a developer to access these. Well, your company policies probably won't always allow you to do that. So you always have to be kind of checking in on what's permitted. And so, so for me, the future is here. I'm not there for it, but I want that AI assistant so much. I want an AI butler to run my life. I don't want to ever make a dentist appointment again.
I think accessible learning, making it more available to everybody to use and allowing the individuals to kind of dictate how they want to learn things, but also make sure the things that they're learning are accurate and reliable.
One of the things I love about being a software developer is this feeling that I can take a complex world and make it simple through an abstraction. And I love the fact that the future is going to be characterized by a bunch of people that didn't have to go to get a 4-year degree, didn't have to read thick books on C# or Java or whatever, that they can solve their own problems, that the future is not going to be near as many Excel spreadsheets. We can actually build software that encapsulates those rules, has a better user interface, is more reliable, and you don't necessarily have to have a programming background to make that happen. I think that's pretty exciting, despite the fact that it's also, frankly, freaking scary. Like, it's a mixture for all of us. But I do think it's good for humanity, even though it creates a question mark for our future to some degree. So all in all, I'm just optimistic. I think it's going to be good for us.
I love that. I think that's a good uplifting way to think about it. You guys all have some very positive perspectives on AI. So we're going to wrap here. I want to make sure you guys all thank our panelists. This is a lot to stand in front of all of you and answer questions. We've got about a 15-minute break until the next session. So thank you guys all for coming, and have a great rest of your day.